Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the ICT Educator webinar series. I'm Steve Wright, statewide director of the ICT sector team. If you'd like to visit our website, you'll see the 10 regional directors that are part of the team, and additionally our support team, which includes Nicole Sherman, who's the producer of this series. We provide this series as a team for the benefit of California Community College faculty, deans, decision makers, and all other related groups who want to join us. The series was developed to provide good information, expertise worthy of going to a conference that may cost someone $100,000 to put on, but we do this without spending $100,000. Every week, just go ahead and register so that Friday at 10 a.m. you can sit back and tune in for another informative discussion of things relating to your educational options on your campus. On the next slide, you'll see just some of the recent IT-related webinars that you can review at your leisure. Each of these webinars is recorded, chapterized by video, transcripted. We include the PowerPoint presentations and everything else, so that as if you need these for your classroom or ongoing student success planning or grant writing efforts, it's a tremendous resource. On the next slide, you can see what's coming up in the next 3 weeks. We are looking at the Haiku Cyber Range for cybersecurity training. It should be interesting. We're looking at CompTIA's certification partner program, and then cybersecurity dual enrollment pathway at Cypress College. All interesting things that you can do on your campus, and many more are scheduled throughout the remainder of the fall. Next slide. This week, we're going to be focusing on cloud computing and the industry engagement effort afforded us by Amazon Web Services. The cloud computing skills are rapidly advancing job market, and we recognize there are several significant public cloud providers in addition to Amazon Web Services, as well as many common cloud skills relevant to all cloud providers such as Linux, Python, VMware, and others. We're going to focus on those other options in a future webinar. As for today, many colleges have read the press and are curious about the Amazon Web Services options. Obviously, the colleges in the LA Cloud Computing Consortium and the Bay Cloud Computing Consortium have innovated and selected a model that's appropriate for them. However, there are another 80 colleges that are interested, many of them with IT curriculum in place, and they're wondering what are the options. So hopefully today we'll shed light on the other options with that Amazon Web Services involvement. So let me welcome today our 3 speakers who will take about 15 minutes each, and then that'll leave time for questions. Richard Grodiga, of course, our regional director and incumbent guru of all things IT in our community college system. Myra Roldan with AWS Educate, and Tracy Applegate for AWS Academy. So I'll turn it over to Richard Grodiga to get started.
All right, thanks, Steve. I don't know about the guru part, however, but I'm happy to share, and have had quite a bit of history teaching in IT. In fact, my entire teaching career. And let me just share my screen here and get my slides up. I actually am going to be reprising a presentation I did yesterday for the Bay Area Consortium. That's the region that I serve in my role as the regional director, formerly known as the Deputy Sector Navigator. So, they're still haven't decided upon how they're going to approach their delivery of cloud computing training, but they're looking at a broader approach, and certainly AWS is going to be one of the partners in their efforts for sure. But Steve, you reminded me of a Joni Mitchell song from the 60s, and of looking at clouds from both sides now. And I thought about that too, and I was reminded, looked it up, and the last line in there is, I really don't know clouds at all. But I think that could be the case for many of the folks that are involved in this process. So, my interest was in really trying to remind people that the cloud is really nothing new. It's cloud computing, and computing's been around for a while. In fact, I just want to go over just a quick history. You can see that there was already the thought of a computer cloud, although seen as a public utility computing power, as early as 1961. And then with the birth of the internet in '69, it was thought of that, again, we would see this idea of the computer being sort of a utility. And you can see that's what the key is: computing utility, computer utilities. All of those were thought of in early days. And then a couple of key points in history in the 1990s with the birth of the World Wide Web and with internet-based computing utilities. 1999, Salesforce launched. In 2002, Amazon.com launched Amazon Web Services. Actually, they purchased that service to really support their business of selling just about everything online, and they needed that computing power to do that. In 2006, they launched Elastic Compute Cloud, or EC2. That's their service of being able to offer computing power on a needs basis, and to be able to be elastic, to move and increase up and down as computing power was needed. Some definitions I think are important here too, and I wanted to make sure that the folks in the Bay Area, the administrators and workforce people, were clear on what cloud computing was. Here's a couple definitions from Gartner and Forrester Research, and both of them identify cloud computing as basically IT capabilities, IT-enabled capabilities, or IT services. And a more academic definition from NIST, our National Institute of Standards and Technology. Same thing, a little bit lengthier, but if you look at the details and the examples given, it's networks, servers, storage, applications, and services. It's an IT service as well. So I wanted to make sure that people understood that cloud computing was still computing, and it involves computers and hardware and many of the IT services that are there. So just a couple of key terms: the cloud, that IT environment designed for the purpose of remotely provisioning IT resources. What is an IT resource? Can be physical or virtual. On-premise IT resources that are hosted in conventional IT enterprises, still a big part of IT services today. And many companies are doing a hybrid approach, a combination of cloud and on-premise resources. And then this last one, this multi-cloud, has gained a lot of attention now. And I thought this statistic was pretty illuminating and can help inform us in our training, is that 60% of enterprises today use 21 or more different public cloud services to deliver their IT services. So it's been a journey to the cloud, beginning in the 60s and moving from the classic data center of physical equipment and hardware, dedicated servers for each application, to a virtualized data center, and then to cloud services after that. And there's big benefits. There's no surprise that people are rushing to the cloud because it can save a tremendous amount of money. It's easily upgradable, offsite data storage, lowers the total cost of ownership for companies. We're moving to the cloud. We're probably not going to go back. And then I was just kind of reviewing sort of the top cloud providers so I could help inform at least the Bay Area colleges on how they might approach teaching cloud computing. The top cloud providers in the US and worldwide, actually, for this year is AWS, Microsoft, Google Cloud is there, and then IBM is making their move too. And then Salesforce, really, they kind of dominate the software as a service area as well. So just to kind of describe those different services, you can see if you're on premise, you have to take care of everything from the hardware all the way up through the applications and keep and manage those. And it's a costly effort to do so. If you decide to outsource your infrastructure, your hardware, you can do that. That's infrastructure as a service. And then you're responsible for the virtualization, the networking, the applications, and the operating systems. If you decide to move your operating systems to the cloud and use a platform as a service, you can do that. And then, your enterprise is responsible for the application and the data that's being used by those applications. And then there's software as a service, where everything is entirely provider managed. So we need to, address all of these different services that are out there. And then, there are tools to help managers manage those services. And I wanted to just point out to everybody that the tools, or the desktops, are very similar among the different providers. So AWS has a management console. They provide all kinds of services, computing services, storage, networking. All of those are a part of the services that can be managed from the desktop. But if you look at some of the other management tools like Azure, it's very similar. They have virtual machines, there's a database and storage accounts. Very similar way to manage your services, those IT services in the cloud. Here's the Google platform. Again, my thought was, if students can learn one management console like AWS, they could easily transition to some of the other providers as well. You can see here, again, there's compute engines, applications, storage, all those appear. And then I didn't want to forget IBM too. They have their own management console as well. And all of them have billing capabilities, so you can see how much you're spending on those services as well. So my thought was, as a regional director, how do we respond at the community college to this need for cloud computing skills? And I was just kind of looking up through the Department of Labor some statistics, and these are the number of computer position and jobs over the next 10 years from 2016 to 2026. And you can see that for the most part, all of these areas in IT are increasing in need over the next 10 years. But I was thinking about the community college and what's really our sweet spot for training. And I think it's these areas: computer support specialists, network and computer systems administrators, web developers. The software developers, I think, by and large, still demands a bachelor's degree, and not that that's not one of our areas in computer science transfer, and could benefit certainly from offering some cloud computing resources in those courses as well. And then what does industry expect from us? What are their plans, the future workforce strategies, all sectors versus ICT? And you can see, by and large, within ICT, there's a great interest in investing and reskilling their current employees, keeping them up to date. And then by a large number, they want to be able to collaborate with educational institutions. So that's us, that's the community colleges. How will we respond? And that's kind of what brings us to the model curriculum, because we want to be able to respond to industry in a consistent way, in a single voice if we could. And we want to let them know that the training that we're providing at the community colleges is what they need for cloud computing. And in 2015, faculty up and down the state in great numbers got together in a process to formulate what was to become the IT model curriculum. There was an update in 2017 that was fully vetted as well. And within that model curriculum, there are course descriptors that can be used to help inform colleges on what are the kind of fundamental IT knowledge, skills, and abilities that our students need. And I was looking back at the work that was done, and there are a number of courses there that could be very useful in informing cloud computing as well. There are fundamental programming course, computer networks, system and network administration, all fundamental IT skills that could benefit from resources that are in the cloud. And there are a couple of cloud descriptors as well, virtualization and cloud essentials. You know, we've been doing this for a number of years now, teaching VMware, and the EMC storage courses have been taught for the last 7 or 8 years as well, and a cloud security fundamentals course as well. So there are some fundamental supporting skills that are necessary to venture into the cloud, and they include fundamental concepts. You know, what's the cloud, virtualization, those kinds of things that are taught in our introductory courses. Networking and database, scripting, all important. And Linux by far is probably the #1 operating system that we need to teach our students as well. And then I wanted to thank Myra for kind of pointing out some key sort of cloud-specific skills that could be new, could be introduced into existing courses, but need to be certainly addressed. And that's the infrastructure management, right? Deployment and management services within the cloud using the desktop and control panels that are provided by this service providers. Compute engines, how do we use them, scale them, make them available for high availability. Cloud architecture and then cloud security are all areas that we need to specifically address as well. So there is a CID process, and maybe this is an opportunity to get together again. We've convened discipline input groups, faculty up and down the state to help us with cybersecurity, with software development in the past, and I think maybe it's time to revisit while we're experimenting with courses that we want to deliver, to get together again and really kind of settle in on what are some of the core competencies that are needed for cloud computing. So this journey to the cloud, there's a lot of teaching and training resources already available that we shouldn't ignore. The Cisco Network Academy, I'm a strong proponent of them, having been involved now. This is my 23rd year. But they, you know, they have tools and services that are available to help some of those fundamentals, particularly within the networking and with automation and scripting courses that are coming out as well. NetLab, again, another area that can be useful in our training. NetLab is a cloud service. It is a private cloud that is hosted and shared by community colleges. We have a pretty large implementation in the Bay Area where students can practice a lot of the skills that they need to be able to manage those cloud resources. And then NDG and VMware Academy, yet another area. They have a series of simple little courses that can be nice additions to your courses as well. But by and large, I think I'm reminded myself of the Cisco Academy from many years ago when they rolled out and how they became a real strong partner. And I see a lot of similarities with AWS as well, both with their Educate program and also with the Academy. And so I'm hoping to turn it over to Myra. She'd like to talk a little bit about AWS Educate.
So I'm going to take a few minutes and talk to you about AWS Educate and some of the resources that we have available for you. But before I do that, I want to share some statistics with you. So a lot of what I do with AWS Educate is I'm the program manager for technical curriculum development on the cloud degree team. And I work with institutions to help them plan, strategize, and implement degree programs, but also to cloudify existing courses and existing programs. And there's a huge need for this. And I'm just going to share some stats because I do a lot of research around labor market data. I also do research around cloud skills to make sure that we're mapping to competencies. And so I hope all of you are familiar with Gartner. I am a former Gartner employee. I worked for them a few years ago. And they do a lot of research around technology. And they had their first cloud infrastructure symposium last year in 2018, and they surveyed their attendees. And so it was really interesting to read some of the data, and I'll see if I can find a link to their survey so I can throw it in the chat afterwards. But what they found was that 90% of hiring managers in the cloud space around this cloud infrastructure are finding it very difficult to find skilled talent. So people who know how to work and manage a cloud infrastructure. Gartner's also predicting that by 2025, 80% of enterprises are going to shut down their physical data centers and move to cloud architectures and infrastructure. So that's really really interesting, because think about 2025, that's just around the corner, right? So with that said, when we think about cloudification, I'm going to share my desktop. Let's see if I could do this. All right. I'm going to introduce you to AWS Educate. If you're not familiar, I'm going to walk you through this. So you can join free. You would come here to awseducate.com and you would click join. You would join as an educator. If you're not an educator in your workforce, you can join as a workforce, or you can join as an enterprise. When you join AWS Educate, and let me just walk you through this really quick. You're just going to enter some basic information. You should also encourage all your students to join AWS Educate, and I'm going to share the benefits for both educators and students. So as an educator, you would come in and you would just fill out the form. Use your institution's email address when you're registering. For course number, course name, you can just put whatever course you're teaching right now, and you can just put a link to your university where it requires a link. And then for promo code, there's no promo code needed. And you would just click, I'm not a robot, right? Because you want to make sure you're not robots. And then you click next. There's going to ask you some information. You can either choose a starter account or use your own existing AWS account if you have one. I recommend using a starter account. As an educator, AWS Educate provides you $100 in promotional credits that you can use to access the AWS console. So it's not redeemable for cash. It is strictly for console use. So I'm going to log in as an educator. Your students, when they join, they will receive $100 in promotional credits and access to the AWS console also. And as an educator, we have some powerful tools that you can also use to ensure that your students get access to practice, hands-on practice, which is where I believe, and I strongly believe this, that's where students are going to gain the most value. So I'm going to log in as an educator. And so in our educator portal, you're going to find free resources. So there's videos to help you onboard with our platform. Here, we're going to start, I'm going to minimize my window here so you guys can see this. Starting from the right, you have access to the AWS console. So if you selected a starter account, you'll get this button. If you're using your personal account, it'll just dump you into your personal AWS account. Your credits appear. These credits are renewable every year, so you do nothing. The account is federated. So it means federated means that it's managed by a third party who issues those credits. So they handle the management of those provisional credits for us. And I'll walk you through this in a little bit because I'm going to show you some exciting stuff. We have some professional development for you. So if you want to ramp up on AWS and just cloud in general, you can click on professional development, and we have these cloud career pathways and this Cloud Computing 101, which I recommend everyone start here, especially if you're new to the cloud. And I usually like to ask people, like, what's your experience with cloud? So I know we have a chat, just really quick in the chat. Can you dump in there, like, what's your experience with cloud, with the cloud in general? I'll give you 2 seconds. So just put in, what's your experience using cloud? Okay, end user, save photos, basic AWS provisioning. Anyone else? IT. Okay. End user. Okay, great. So if you guys have a smartphone, right? And you save photos to the cloud or use Google Drive or use Dropbox, you're using the cloud. So you're using the cloud every day, even for things that you are not aware of. If you watch Netflix, you're using the cloud. If you are watching Amazon Prime videos, you're using the cloud. All of those things are hosted on the cloud. Your phone, though, becomes your virtual private cloud. This is your own special cloud device. And we'll share a little bit about that in a little bit. But I just like to use that analogy to help you kind of get it, kind of ground the simplicity around cloud. All right, so back to this, we have this Cloud Computing 101, and then you have the new Cloud Career Pathways. We have 11 pathways which are tied to careers. So everything we do, we work backwards from jobs. And here, students get access to this too. So this is a student view also. Students get access to these pathways, as do you, and they're just overviews of these 11 different careers. It gives you high-level knowledge of what an individual does in those careers, what kind of skills do they need, and students get to do exercises and get some hands-on practice with it. And if you decide to go through a pathway, you get the same, you are going through as a student, you get the same kind of ability to go through and get hands-on. It's a great way to get started. We have some educator guides. We have these things called badges, and badges allow you to get very specialized knowledge. So we have badges around Deep Lens and Alexa, around RoboMaker, and these are, you can use these in your classroom right now. So students can go through these badges, and they have to complete some projects. In order to complete a badge, at the end they earn a badge. The badges do not serve as credentials for external use, but students have access to a job board, and these badges appear in their profile. And employers can see what badges a student has completed. So we have everything from like Deep Lens, RoboMaker, to Sumerian, like VR, Alexa, and IoT. And we're adding more badges to this within the next few months. You also have access to content. So I am on the Cloud Degree team, and if you click on our Get Content and then you click on AWS Educate Cloud Degree, you get access to a repository. And this repository is a location for shared content. So content that you can easily access today. You can filter your search by categories, like if you're looking for something just on databases, or if you're looking for specific skill-based content, you can filter through this. You can look inside the content. You can see what's covered in it. Now we have these accordions that you can look inside of each and see what the learning objectives are. You can see what competencies this aligns to, what services are used or covered in the course. All of these are common cartridges, which means you can download them and upload them to your existing LMS. You can live preview the content before you download it. So this is like, you know, like try before you buy, except you're not buying anything. And then you can download this cartridge to your local desktop to use it in your existing LMS. So I'm going to stop for a minute because I want to see if there's any questions really quick. Can I talk about becoming a member? I will do that very shortly. And do you have an institutional email address? Yes, so students do need, when students are joining, they need to have, they need to use their institution email address. If the institution does not issue email addresses for their students, you can work with us and we'll make sure that we get those students approved. Like if they have a .org or a .com email address, because the institution doesn't have a .edu email address. We can work with you on that. I'll talk about becoming a member institution shortly towards the end, just because I wasn't planning on covering that in depth, because with the becoming a member institution, there's some T&Cs that need to be accepted, and usually that has to go through institution's legal process. Okay, so let's talk about my favorite part of AWS Educate, which is classrooms and credits. So as an educator, you have the ability to create a sandbox for your students where they can get hands-on practice without using their promotional credits. And by this, I'm going to show you. I clicked on Classroom and Credits. I'm going to click on Request or go to AWS Classroom. And then down here, we have templates. Each of these templates have specific services that will be enabled when you select this template. You can select up to 3 templates when creating a classroom. So if I clicked Cloud Basics, and let's say I want it to include these big data services and this machine learning, all of these services would be turned on for the students in my sandbox. I would then click Next. Enter some information here. So on the right side is where your nitty-gritty stuff is. So you need to enter a start date. So if you want to use classrooms, you need to request your classroom at least a week before you plan on using that classroom, because it takes us like 48 hours to create that classroom. So if you request a classroom today, it will not be ready tomorrow. Your end date. This end date is extremely important because let's say you request a classroom and your end date is like October 15th. After the 15th, your students no longer have the ability to do any tasks in that classroom. So it ends. It doesn't terminate. It doesn't like delete the entire classroom. Access is just terminated from that. Here is where you can request, where you decide how much you're going to allot for each student to work in this sandbox. So these credits are separate from their promotional credits. Which makes it really, makes this an awesome tool, because what we're doing is we're putting in, think of this as monopoly money, right? So like you want them to work on a database project, and you use the simple calculator to decide how much you think they're going to be spending on this project. You can allot as little as $2 to as much as, let's say, $100. But if you want to allot $100, you need to put in a business reason in here. So we'll ask you, like, why do you think you need $100 per student? And it could be that they're doing some big data analysis, or they're doing some data scraping, or something that requires a lot of compute power. You would enter your estimated enrollment, and then you upload a list of students. So we have an Excel spreadsheet template that you download. If you do not have your student roster, the way around that is to just add your own email address and upload it, and it adds 1 student to your classroom. I'm just going to check the chat right now just to see. Okay, integration, accessibility. I'm not going to have enough time to talk about integration and accessibility right now, but we can take that off this session, and I can try to provide some information via email. All right, so I'm going to show you what a classroom looks like. I'm going to click on Go to My Classroom. And here, I have a live classroom. So if I wanted to add more students, I would click on my classroom name or my course name. And I can have students line up and enter their email address. I do that during workshops. I'll have people just come in and put their email address in, and they get an invite to my classroom. And then they have to accept that invite. And here you can see invites that have been added to my classroom. Some have been enrolled and some are still pending. Or you can bulk upload your email addresses. When you go to your classroom, as an educator, you're going to go to Dashboard. And in this dashboard, you have your general dashboard and your analytics. So analytics, let's start here, will show you how many students are in your classroom. And think of classrooms is a really bad name. So think of classrooms, when I say classroom, it's a sandbox. You'll see your student email addresses. You'll see if they've activated their account. You will see how much credit you have allotted them, and then you can see their credit usage. So I use this for a workshop, and you can see that people were spending between $1.20, and then I have someone who spent $5.77. This is a great opportunity for me to see what the student is doing. Did they launch multiple instances? Were they unsure of how to delete an instance? Were they struggling with something? So I'm going to target this student. So I'm going to go to my dashboard, and I'm going to find that student. Let's see. Where is he? Right there. And now I have this data on the student. I can see what his activity is. I can also go back to the dashboard here. Select him again. I can also go into his console in classrooms only. You cannot do this when they're using their starter account. You can only use this when they're using a classroom sandbox. So here I am as a student. And so when I click on his AWS console, I can help the student work through some of their issues, or if they're stuck. So I can see like what are the things that the student was looking at. I can click on VPC. I can see like what were they doing. And so you'll see here, this is how you're in your student's account up here. So if you click here, you'll see the full student's information here. This is an ephemeral account also. So remember at that end date, this classroom will no longer be available to the student. But I can see what the student's doing. I can help them troubleshoot. I can also add bugs to force the student to troubleshoot what they're working on. So I actually like doing that, adding bugs to students' build, because then it forces them to really learn what they're doing, and they learn that troubleshooting piece that they need. So let's go back here. So I'm going to click out of that student's account. I'm going to go back to classrooms. So this is the gist of what we offer you. And for me, classrooms is really powerful, because as an educator, it allows you to build these sandboxes, and you can give your students some hands-on exercises. Like you can even tell them, like, I want you to experiment. I want everyone to build a network, a cloud infrastructure that has 2 EC2 instances, and I don't know, and has a relational database in it. And so you can allow your students to explore without using their personal promotional credits. And so in a nutshell, that is what we offer. I know I just threw a lot at everyone just now, and I usually do this fly-by-night kind of introduction, but now I want to see if there's any questions. Okay, so let's see where we left off. So I'm not going to be able to hit integration, and thank you for the time check. And can you choose the My BCC email? Oh, okay, thank you. All right, so thank you so much. If you have questions, I'm going to stay in the chat for a little bit. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer questions about AWS Educate.
Yeah, and we can keep this open a little longer after the hour for further questions. And right now, though, we do want to switch over and have Tracy Applegate cover some of the features of AWS Academy.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Applegate. I am the Global Sales Manager for the AWS Academy program. Was going to cover a few things that Myra already covered as far as the IT skills gap, so that saved me a little time. Thank you, Myra. I see AWS Academy and AWS Educate as extremely complementary programs. They're a little bit different, but they have a lot of similarities as well, and they work very well together. So if you're already an AWS Educate member, you would probably find some interest in the Academy. So the Academy program, at the end of the day, is designed to place students in IT roles. And that's how we measure success of the program, is by how many Academy graduates are gainfully employed. To do that, we're trying to help upskill them by developing curriculum. And we share that curriculum with the institutions and the educators, and they use that to teach the students. So essentially what we do is we develop and we continue to maintain curriculum. We just came out with 2 new courses, and I'm going to step through those quickly in a few moments, and I will make the slide deck available, so don't feel like you have to take notes. It's a post-secondary program integration. It is aligned to AWS certification. So if you Google AWS certifications, you'll see a certification roadmap. We follow that pretty closely. So if we don't have a course yet, look at that roadmap and you'll see that we're going to probably end up with one of those courses shortly. And again, it is tied to employability. So we are doing a lot of work with employers globally now to connect them with our Academy graduates. So this is just a very, very small amount of the Academy members that we have globally, just to give you a rough idea. In the United States, we are having a hard time keeping up with demand, actually. It's really taken off in the United States, but we are in multiple countries. So a quick overview of the program. I mentioned the curriculum. We do course updates. We refresh the courseware that we have. So we take the heavy lifting of curriculum off the shoulders of the educators for this. We do give hands-on practical experience. So students and educators both access the console. We do give professional learning development for the educators. And again, it's tied to the AWS certifications, and we do waive our fees for the exam. So let me step through a little bit about how this works to make it make more sense. So the institution signs up with us. You would work with Angel Duncan. She is the representative currently for the US and Canada. And you sign up. We do have our own set of terms and conditions. They're pretty generic though, because it's a free program. And then we work with you to identify which educators would make the most sense in your institution to come into our program. These educators come into the program and we work with you to figure out how you're going to deliver our courseware. Some people to get teaching faster will add it as an elective because it doesn't have to go through such a stringent approval process. Some will do semester non-credit type courses to get it going. Others will embed it in other ways into existing degree programs, create new programs with the curriculum embedded. And then for those who are working with the cloud degree with Educate, that is a perfect opportunity to leverage the Academy courseware to put into that degree that you're building. So a lot of different ways. We do ask that you teach it in its entirety. So if a course has 31 modules, let's say, we do ask that you teach all 31. But we give you a lot of flexibility with how you teach it. But we go over that with you and the educator. We go over when the educator wants to start teaching, and we work backwards from that teach date. So the educator is given access to the curriculum for whichever course or courses they wish to pursue, and they self-study. Everything's online. There's, and I'll show you in just a moment a breakdown of what some of the courses look like. And you are paired up with a technical program manager. You'll hear the acronym TPN. So the TPN's job is to work with the educators to get them successfully through the material and then to achieve their certification. Once they obtain their certification, they come back to the TPM. We open up a virtual classroom, and that content that the educator just learned about is now given to that educator in turn to teach the students. We do require educators become certified before they teach. We don't require that the students get certified, but we are really working to try and message that the importance of certification to the students, because we are seeing it make a difference. And having having an AWS certification on your resume is definitely going to help you stand apart. And we're also working on trying to identify internships and apprenticeships with employers in the area so that the students can get some hands-on learning while they're studying as well. So it is completely free. There's no charge at all for the program. The only charge that the student and the educator will incur is a third party. So when you go to Pearson VUE or PSI, they're third-party testing centers, they will charge $50 for the entry-level course and $75 for any of the associate-level courses. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. We have here about 30 hours to start off with the basic course, which is Academy Cloud Foundations. I've seen some educators, especially if they come into the program with an IT background, they might study for a day and then go sit for the exam. I actually passed it as well. So, and I'm not technical, and I passed the Cloud Practitioner exam, which goes with the AWS Academy Cloud Foundations. And I mentioned there about the costs. So the curriculum. So the curriculum is made up of lecture modules, hands-on labs, knowledge checks, and we're putting more and more projects into our courses because we're getting a lot of feedback that the projects seem to be the most in demand. So there's PowerPoints and there's PDFs that you can download, and again, it's all in a virtual environment. These are the courses that we offer today. So Academy Cloud Foundations is our entry level. It's cloud concepts, it's AWS services overview, and even though it's about 20 hours of content, we ask that you take at least 2 weeks to teach the students. The other 4 items that you'll see here are what we call associate level, and those are a little bit harder. Architect in particular can be pretty demanding. We mentioned 40. It could be 40 to 60 hours depending on the background. We do provide the educators and the students with prerequisites, so you understand what type of educator would probably make the most sense to teach some of these courses. Having a good background, at least a foundational background in networking, database is always very helpful. So we have Academy Cloud Developing, Data Analytics, Cloud Architect, and Cloud Operations. And I'll I'll show you a little bit of how that breaks down. So again, Academy Cloud Foundation's pretty entry level. We just announced the ability to sit for the exam remotely, so remote proctoring. So we're really excited about that, but it's only for Academy Cloud Foundations, not for the other 4. So this is a little breakdown of what the modules look like, how many slides are involved, approximate time to deliver those slides, the lab times, and we do break this down for each course. Let's see, I'm just skipping through some of her slides here in the interest of time. So this is Academy Cloud Architecting, so you get the feel for this, so we break all that down. And it tells you, so for cloud developing, we're helping the students get prepared to sit for the Certified Developer Associate exam. And then cloud operations, they can sit for the Certified SysOps Administrator exam. And go through this module. And then we have data analytics. So this just came out, I think, last week. And it's a series of lab exercises. It's not meant to be like a big data machine learning type course. It's more on the business side of it. But I think there are about 9 labs that are associated with this. And it gives you a nice foundation in data analytics. And again, we break that down there, the different types of things that you'll do in the modules. So that's what we offer right now. I think I walked through a little bit about how you sign up, and that's what this slide covers here. We do, for the associate level courses, ask the educators once they get their certification to participate with a TPM and a teachback. So that's basically pick a module and deliver it as if you would to the students, just so that we make sure that you're comfortable with the content. For the Academy Cloud Foundation, there is no teachback because it's really kind of a fundamental type course. So the requirements, obviously the institution needs to sign up. They need to sign the terms and conditions. They need to develop an instructional plan. That's what I spoke about earlier as far as how you're going to deliver it, how often, anticipated students per offering. We have some classes that are 150 students. That's usually in India or China. I think the US average is about 22 students per course. We need to understand which educators are coming in and what they're coming in for. So some educators just do Academy Cloud Foundation, which is fine. Some get ambitious and try and do them all. So we'll work with you to figure all that out. Today, the program is geared for students 18 years of age and older, but we will be going down to the age of 13. That's probably going to happen in Q1 of next year. So we are piloting with a few high schools that have dual enrollment students. So, so keep that in mind. And I think that is about it. I know I talked really fast and gave you a lot of information, but I will make the slides available. And now I'm going to see if I can stop the share and look for any questions that we may have.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
All right. So if everybody would check the chat box and see what kind of questions we have. I think both of you, when I talked to you previous to this presentation, shared how the 2 programs could be complementary on a campus. I was wondering if each of you could talk a little bit more about that, because most of our colleges are questioning, should I go this way or that way? And I'm hearing both is okay. So could you comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll go first, Meyer, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Since I'm already off mute. I see them as highly complementary. I think it's a better together type story. I don't think it has to be an either or. The way I look at it is, if you're already working with AWS Educate, you have, you get service credits, you get exposure to the platform, there's the different learning pathways. If the students want to take it further, then Academy makes perfect sense, because then they're actually getting their certifications. My belief is everybody who is a member of AWS Academy should be a member of AWS Educate, and vice versa. I just think there's no reason not to. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I can elaborate on that also. So I have the same belief, and I always like to, so when people ask me what's the difference between Educate and Academy, I relate everything to food. So when I think about like our Academy and Educate, think about restaurants, right? So for Academy, it is a black tie event, right? So you have to, there's some decorum that you have to stick to, and there's a fixed menu, and there's no substitution. So you have to be ready to apply to the to the training and follow their standards, because they have good curriculum that you can integrate into your classroom with, I don't want to say minimal effort, because there's effort, right? Like you have to become certified, which is to your benefit. And then there's educate. So like, right, once you have that, you've gone through your training, then you have educate, and we're more like a buffet. And you can wear your flip-flops with us, and you can come as is, and you pick your own plate, and you can like slap on dessert if you want and just eat dessert. You can decide to try a little bit from each menu, and then so you can come from in your black tie fair suit and come to the buffet and also eat off of our menu. But what you can create is a really unique blend of learning for your students. So if let's say you become certified to teach an academy course, let's say the foundations course. I believe that's like 2 weeks, right? Tracy, is it 2 weeks?
Yes, we ask that the
content,
students,
right?
the students get a minimum of 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, let's say you have a whole semester, right? So let's decide you decided to do, you decide to split that content amongst a stretch of weeks. You could take content from AWS Educate and augment, like provide additional hands-on activities to support what they're learning, to help them get that practical knowledge. So then they'll be prepared not only for the certification exam, but also have gotten extra hands-on experience, so they can prove to employers that they know what they're doing, that when they get on the job, they actually know what they're doing to supplement like their certification also. So I think it's a really great marriage. And I'm of the mindset to like do both, because Academy is going to get you suited up to teach, right? And it's going to give you some great content that you can use like right off the shelf. And then Educate, we can help you augment. And if you want to cloudify an existing course, like a IT course or a programming course, or even a business course or healthcare course, we can help you cloudify that, where with Academy, you can provide that foundational knowledge that's really required. So that's my take on it.
Well, you kind of answered my question. I wanted to ask you why they call you the Chief Cloudification Officer.
I will help you cloudify any course you have.
That's great. Were you involved with the Santa Monica curriculum development as well, Myra?
So initially, I joined Educate in December. So Howard Stahl had created that content before I arrived, but I have been working very closely with Howard on the creation of an associate's degree.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with a number of colleges and universities across the globe right now to help them cloudify courses and get existing courses integrated with cloud technology.
Now, I understand both your organizations have been working with the CSUs as well. Could you give us an idea of what they're looking to adopt and compare it a little bit to what we're adopting in the community colleges?
Yeah, so that's an ongoing conversation I have right now. So there's not a lot I can share because I'm still, we're still in works with that. But we are, looking. The CSUs really want to align with the community colleges. Like they want some alignment so we can develop this 2+2, right? So students can complete a degree at a community college in the California area and transfer into one of the CSUs. But we all know that is easier said than done. And so we're working through that, right? So I don't think that we're going to see something happen like immediately, but I say each of you should be, I think the first articulation should be amongst the community colleges to ensure that you have that transferability of credit amongst yourselves first. And as we work through things, we can, it's an ongoing process. So I don't have a lot I can share.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a hard stop, unfortunately, in about 3 minutes. So what I was going to say is I'll drop off, but I wanted to just thank everybody for the opportunity to present today. And I would suggest that if you'd like to share my email address with the participants, they're happy to follow up with me if they have additional questions. I'm happy to do that.
If you'd like to drop it in the chat box, go right ahead. And
Okay.
Thank you very much, Tracy, for
Thank you.
pinch hitting for Angel, who I understand she's on a flight somewhere.
Yes, yeah,
And,
back from Canada.
And look forward to, I hope I'm not disclosing anything I shouldn't, but, should you guys deploy more resources in the California area, we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Yes, I'm hiring as we speak for someone based in California, so stay tuned for that.
All right. Thank you very much for
All
joining
right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. Any other questions for Myra or for Richard from our group online? We've got a couple more minutes here.
Okay, so Steve, let me just address, because I can talk faster than I can type.
Okay.
So there's a question around, can you use, I just lost it. Can you use the same login for Academy and Educate? So you have to, we're two separate services. You have to register for each separately. So there's no federation between the two. So you can use the same email address, right? But you do have to register for each separately. Let's see what else. Yes, so the cloud practitioner exam is now remotely proctored. Mariana Holiday on the Educate team just took it remotely, and she was still stressed out, but passed it. Let's see. Any other questions that I see here? Do you see any that I can answer?
There's one earlier about coaching and counseling for faculty. Don't know if I can go back and find that one. We have a lot of chat here today.
Yeah.
Popular subject. Okay, if anyone would like to update your question, that'd be fine. But we are in the closing minute here, so maybe it's probably best to just kind of
perfect.
wrap up. Once again, I appreciate Richard's comments, because he shares the perspective of the community college and its history in terms of IT and computing development, that sort of thing. There's been a wonderful effort by both the LA Cloud Computing Consortium and the Bay Consortium developing a specific curriculum that works very well. And what we wanted to do today was simply open up discussion. We didn't go into that particular curriculum. Actually, we didn't go into any curriculum in particular, but I think the idea is to know what the options are and what you can begin to reach out and do. There'll be more efforts across the state for us to try and help facilitate that conversation and help people get their needs met. In the meantime, obviously you can reach out to any of our presenters if you like, or to me or your regional directors in the ICT sector team for questions, help, and support, and we'd be glad to help you with that. Any closing comments from anybody else?
Yeah, Steve, Richard Grody. There was a question about from Roger Long about member organizations. I know your college needs to join and become an academy, but that's not true with Educate. Is that correct, Myra? Can just faculty members become?
Yeah, that's correct. So,
Yeah,
so as a
right.
faculty member, you can join AWS Educate. If your institution becomes a member institution, your promotional credits increase. So that's the bonus there, right? So you go from 100 to 200 promotional credits.
So there is an option to become a member of for your institution to become a member of AWS Educate as well, then.
Yeah, and so as an educator, you should not enroll your institutions because it should come from your administrators, because there are some TNCs that they need to agree to.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, good. Well, then with that, we'll call it a day, and thank you all very much. Look forward to seeing you all next week for our next conversation. I believe it's cybersecurity contest platform, Haiku or something like that. Should be interesting. Take care.